Joining me live now is the South Australian Premier Peter Malinauskas. Peter, thanks so much for your time. Obviously, with Rex going into administration, you'd be worried about some regional towns in your state.
Yeah, it is a concern, Laura. I don't think there's any doubt about that. We are very grateful to learn this morning that the routes will continue to be maintained and serviced during this initial period of administration. But I guess it's the long-term question that has us concerned. I mean, South Australia, and this is true for other places around the country, but, you know, we're a big state. We're bigger than France and Germany combined, and, you know, we've got a lot of isolated communities that rely on this airline. So it is a concern, and we'll have to monitor it very closely.
Yeah, short term is one thing, but you'd have to be concerned long term about what happens there. Have you spoken directly to Rex? What kind of conversations are being had? And does some kind of taxpayer bailout need to be on the cards? Is that something the state can get involved in as well?
Well, the first thing is that we have been kept abreast of the situation via Rex and the Adelaide Airport during the early hours of this morning. We appreciate their transparency in that regard. Certainly I want to acknowledge Virgin's contribution to stepping up to the plate for those more metropolitan routes, that they're servicing those customers who might be left out. But in terms of the long term, look, let's be frank about it. I think, you know, it's not ideal for governments finding themselves having to subsidise commercial operations. I think that should be avoided as best as possible. It's just not the sort of practice I think we want to be getting into the habit of.
No.
That being said, I do think it's important we acknowledge that what Rex do on some routes is a genuine community service, particularly for those far isolated communities. It's not just about connectivity economically or even socially. You know, sometimes regularly, Rex passengers are people who are getting transported from a regional centre to a major metropolitan community to have important surgery, non-urgent elective surgery or cancer treatment or whatever it might be. So look, it is an important service. I think we've got to keep abreast of the situation. But know this, Rex's regional operations in the past have been quite profitable. So there is reason to believe that can occur into the future. And that's why I think a very detailed analysis needs to be conducted around what led to this situation, because it may not be the regional operations, it might be something more metropolitan orientated.
They used to be profitable, you're right, but I mean, we've heard that they've been losing $1 million a week. Did you suspect this was on the cards, or did this come as a shock to you?
No, it came as a surprise to me. Look, I mean, when we saw Rex starting to participate in the major metropolitan routes and competing with Qantas and Virgin, and we certainly saw that happening here in Adelaide. You know, Rex were flying out of Adelaide to Melbourne and the like. You know, initially we welcomed it, and we thought it spoke to the strength of Rex's balance sheet. You know, you wouldn't undertake that type of enterprise unless you had a degree of confidence in your own balance sheet. Now I think maybe with hindsight there'll be a few people questioning the wisdom of that decision, but when we saw Rex's expansion, we thought that spoke to the confidence of the airline rather than the opposite. So this does come as a little bit of a surprise.
Peter, also we've seen, as you mentioned, Virgin step up and say, look, they're going to do replacement flights. Qantas has since done the very same thing, but these are also commercial businesses. Would you warn Qantas in particular, but Virgin as well, about, you know, taking advantage of this? I mean, they are businesses. Their nature is to make money and profit, particularly for their shareholders. But would you warn them against trying to make hay where the sun shines here in terms of their opportunities, let's say?
Well, the short answer is yes. I mean, look, you know, we're a market-based economy. They've got to make rational decisions in the interest of their shareholders.
That's right.
Having said that, you know, what might be in their immediate interests as a company might not necessarily be in their long-term interests. And, you know, Qantas has been under a fair bit of scrutiny lately about how they've, you know, prioritised short-term profiteering, which has been at the expense of their reputation. So I think they would do well to contemplate, yes, while maybe on this route now we have less competition, what is in the interest of them maintaining a high-quality reputation amongst their passengers into the long term. So that, I'm sure they'll factor that into account. I'm hoping that Qantas in particular have learned the lessons of the past, and time will tell whether or not that's true.
Yes, well said. Finally, before I let you go, you and the New South Wales Premier have announced that there will be a joint summit on social media to look at, what you have spearheaded in terms of age limits and the like. It's important that the New South Wales and South Australia are doing it, but where are all the other states?
Well, Chris Minns, so we announced our commitment to legislate as best as we can in South Australia to ban social media platforms giving access to children or giving them accounts. Premier Minns and I were in contact on the back of that. He took an interest in it, as indeed most premiers around the country have, I've got to say. Chris was putting together the summit, and I'm grateful for him providing the opportunity for us to do that collaboratively. And I think it's a good opportunity to not just elevate the issue or even just identify problems, but look at other solutions that might exist beyond just governments arbitrarily intervening. The other thing I'd say, Laura, is that I see this as an opportunity, this with New South Wales. I mean, in a perfect world, we won't have a patchwork quilt of regulation and legislation around the country when it comes to social media platforms and children. You'd prefer a degree of uniformity, so any way that we can collaborate in the work that South Australia is doing is something that I think we should grab.
Well, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you in Sydney when that does happen. I'm assuming it's in Sydney, Premier?
It's in Sydney on the Thursday, and then the second day of the summit is in Adelaide.
Very
so hopefully I'll see you in Adelaide, Laura.
I will see you in Adelaide Friday week, I believe, for the BCA summit. So look forward to talking to you then.
Looking forward to it.